The sheriff's cruiser rolled up my gravel driveway at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning, and my neighbor, Donna Ellery, stood behind it in a pink bathrobe screaming that I had stolen her house. Not borrowed it, not trespassed on it, stolen it. Like the old cedar farmhouse my brother left me had somehow packed itself up in the night and crawled into her imagination. I remember standing there with a mug of coffee in one hand, my knees still stiff from sleep, thinking, well, Harold, you retired from the fire department just to end up in another kind of burning building. My name is Harold Mercer, 62 years old, retired captain out of Cleveland, and after 34 years of smoke, sirens, melted siding, bad calls, worse calls, and faces you do not forget even when you want to, I came to Laurel Bend, Tennessee, for quiet. My older brother, Walt, had left me his place when cancer took him faster than any of us were ready for, a weathered farmhouse sitting on 11 acres of pasture, hickory trees and stubborn red clay, with a tin roof that sang when it rained and a front porch wide enough to make a lonely man believe life could still slow down. I spent my first year fixing everything Walt had meant to fix, replacing rotten boards, clearing brush, mending the fence line, planting tomatoes where his old tool shed used to lean. And every evening I would sit out there with a cold glass of tea and listen to the crickets like they were giving a concert just for me. Then Donna arrived. She came in with a white camper, 2 teenagers, 3 barking little dogs, and the kind of confidence only certain people have when they have never been told no in a language they understand. The lot next to mine was not even really a lot, just a scrubby rental patch owned by a man in Knoxville. But Donna parked that camper like she had discovered America, hung solar lights from a dead oak, put out 2 plastic flamingos, and by day 3 she was waving at people like she had been elected mayor. I tried to be decent. I really did, because life had taught me that most trouble starts when folks forget how to say good morning. I brought her a basket of tomatoes, introduced myself, told her if she needed help finding the dump or the hardware store, I knew the roads pretty well. She smiled at the tomatoes like I had handed her loose change. Then she looked past me at my house and said, "That place has 4 bedrooms, right?" I said 5, if you count the room Walt used for fishing junk, and she gave this little laugh, not friendly, more like she had just found a mistake in my paperwork. 5 bedrooms for 1 man, she said, while my children sleep 6 feet from the stove. I should have heard the warning bell right there. A week later, Donna told me she was the new president of the Green Ridge Meadows Homeowners Association, which was funny because Green Ridge Meadows was a subdivision half a mile down the county road, full of beige houses with matching mailboxes and lawns cut so flat they looked ironed. My farm had been there since 1958, long before anyone in Green Ridge learned how to complain about mailbox height, but Donna said the association had expanded its community influence zone, which sounded like something a person invents when the truth refuses to help them. I told her politely that my deed did not mention any HOA, and she smiled with all her teeth and said, "Harold, sometimes people resist rules until they understand they are for everyone's good." After that, she started watching me. If I painted a railing, she appeared by the fence. If I moved firewood, she took a picture. If I let the pasture grow a little wild for the bees, I got a typed notice in my mailbox saying native overgrowth created visual distress for Green Ridge residents. I laughed the first time because visual distress sounded like what happens when you see your electric bill in August. But the letters kept coming, each one more official looking than the last. Each one signed President Donna Ellery in a big looping signature that made her title seem twice as important as the paper it was printed on. Then one Saturday, while I was replacing a broken porch step, she came up carrying a folder and wearing perfume strong enough to kill mosquitoes. "Harold," she said, "I have been praying on this, and I believe there is a simple solution that would bless both our families." I wiped sawdust off my hands and waited. She said I should move into her camper, just temporarily at first, and let her and her kids take the farmhouse, because they needed room, and I needed less responsibility at my age. I stared at her. Then I laughed, not to be cruel, but because my brain honestly refused to accept the words in that order. Donna's face changed so fast it was like watching weather roll over a mountain. "You selfish old man," she whispered, and that whisper bothered me more than shouting would have. I told her the house was my brother's, now mine, and no amount of churchy language or HOA letterhead was going to turn her camper into a fair trade. She stepped back, eyes shining with something colder than anger, and said, "You will regret embarrassing me, Harold." 2 mornings later, I walked out to feed the barn cat and found red spray paint across my garage door, 6 crooked words running like a wound across the white wood. "You promised it to me." And right then, standing in the quiet yard with the sun barely up and my coffee going cold in my hand, I understood this was not a neighbor problem anymore. This was a woman building a story, and she had decided my home was going to be the ending. I called the sheriff before I called anybody else, because after 34 years in the fire service, I had learned a simple rule. When something starts looking dangerous, you do not wait around hoping it gets embarrassed and goes home. Deputy Ray Collins came out that afternoon, a broad-shouldered man with grey at his temples, and the patient look of somebody who had spent his career listening to people explain why the situation was somehow not their fault. He studied the paint, took photographs, asked if I had cameras, and I told him not yet, but I would by sundown. Across the fence, Donna was standing by her camper with a garden hose in her hand, watching us like she had front row seats to a show. Ray walked over and spoke to her for maybe 5 minutes. I could not hear every word, but I heard her voice rise, then his get quieter, which usually meant the conversation had stopped going her way. When he came back, he said, "She claims you made a verbal promise to give her the house." I said, "Ray, if I promised somebody 11 acres and a 5-bedroom farmhouse, I would probably remember it." He almost smiled. "Keep records, Harold. Every note, every visit, every message. People like this do not stop when you ignore them." That line stayed with me. People like this do not stop when you ignore them. That line stayed with me. People like this. I installed 2 motion cameras, one facing the driveway and one aimed at the orchard. Then I bought a thick black notebook and started writing down everything. Dates, times, exact words, even the weather, because details matter when somebody is trying to turn your life into a lie. At first, Donna got more careful. She stopped coming all the way onto my land, but she would stand at the fence line with a clipboard, taking pictures of my barn, my truck, my compost pile, even the old windmill Walt had put up years ago. Then the mail started. Official notices, bright white paper with a fake-looking Green Ridge Meadow seal at the top, telling me I owed $1,800 in overdue HOA assessments. One claimed my fence exceeded approved height limits. Another said my red pickup was an unregistered visual obstruction. Another warned that my fruit trees were not maintained to community standards, which was impressive considering apple trees had apparently become a threat to civilization overnight. I kept every one of them in a folder. I did not answer. That seemed to make her furious. One afternoon, I came back from town and found Donna standing near my garden with a measuring tape writing something down in her little binder. I said, "Donna, get off my property." She did not even look embarrassed. "I am conducting a compliance review," she said. I said, "You are standing in my tomatoes with a tape measure." She looked at me over those sunglasses and said, "Your property affects the value of our community." I told her, "Your community is half a mile away, and my tomatoes do not answer to you." She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that never reaches a person's eyes. "We will see about that," she said. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of metal hammering. I looked out the front window and saw 2 young men in orange vests driving a sign into my lawn. The sign said, "Noticed of property slam" in bold black letters. I went outside in my bathrobe, not exactly looking like a man ready for legal warfare, and asked what in the world they thought they were doing. One of them handed me a work order. It had Donna's HOA letterhead on it and claimed I had unpaid assessments attached to the property. I told them, "There is no HOA on this property. You are on private land and you need to take that sign out before I call the sheriff." They looked at each other, suddenly less confident, pulled the sign up, and left so fast their truck threw gravel all over my mailbox. That was when I called an attorney named Bethany Rowe, a woman in town who had helped Walt with his estate paperwork years before. She read through Donna's notices, leaned back in her chair, and said, "Harold, this woman does not have a case. She has a costume." I asked what that meant. Bethany tapped the fake HOA seal with one red fingernail and said, "She thinks a title gives her power. But titles only mean something when the law recognizes them." We sent Donna a formal cease and desist letter that afternoon, citing the county records, the deed history, and the fact that Green Ridge Meadows had no authority over my land. 3 days later, I watched from my porch as Donna opened the certified letter, read it, tore it into little pieces, and let them fall into the dirt beside her camper. Then she looked straight at me and gave me a little wave. That night, my motion light came on around 1:15. I checked the camera feed from my phone and saw her standing near my garage, just outside the beam of light, staring at the door she had painted. She did not touch anything, at least not that night, but in the morning there was a handwritten note taped beside the old red letters. It said, "This home will return to its rightful family. Consider this your final warning." I called Deputy Collins again. This time, he came with another deputy, bagged the note, and walked over to Donna's camper while I stood on the porch pretending my hands were not shaking. Donna came out yelling that she was the president of an HOA, that she had rights, that the county had been corrupted by old men protecting each other. Ray told her, "Mom, your authority ends at his fence. If you step on his property again, you will be arrested." She laughed in his face. That should have been the moment she backed down. Instead, a week later, she called 911 and told them I was an armed squatter refusing to leave her home. 3 patrol cars came up my driveway that morning, lights flashing against the windows, and Donna stood behind them in that same pink bathrobe, pointing at my house like she had finally found the stage she wanted. The deputies asked for proof of ownership. I brought out the deed, the tax receipts, utility bills, the estate documents, all of it organized in a blue file because I had spent enough years watching paperwork save lives after disasters to know what it could do. Deputy Collins looked through it for less than 2 minutes, then looked at Donna and said, "This property belongs to Mr. Mercer. It has never been part of your HOA, and there is no legal record that says otherwise." Donna started waving that fake promise letter around, saying I had agreed to transfer the house to her. Ray said, "A handwritten letter is not a deed, Donna." Then he told her that misusing 911 was a criminal offense. For the first time since she moved in, she looked scared. Not sorry, not ashamed, just scared that the world had refused to follow the version of the story she had invented. Bethany helped me file for a no-contact order after that. Donna was served at her camper, and I watched her rip those papers in half too, which seemed to be her favorite legal strategy. For 6 days, everything went quiet. No letters, no photos, no dogs barking at my fence, no Donna at the edge of my yard. I almost believed she was done. Then one cold Saturday before sunrise, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the camera feed and saw Donna at my front porch with another woman beside her, whispering, pointing at my door, and looking around like they were planning something bigger than another note. I called 911 and stayed inside. Donna began pounding on the door, shouting, "Open up, Harold. You cannot keep my house forever." By the time Deputy Collins arrived, she was halfway up my porch steps, still yelling that I had stolen her future. They arrested her for trespassing and violating the court order, and as they put her in the back of the cruiser, she twisted around and screamed, "You will lose everything when the truth comes out." I thought that was just Donna being Donna. I did not know that 2 weeks later, the truth would come out all right, but not about me. It would come from a county surveyor standing beside her camper, staring at a row of fresh boundary stakes and saying words that made the whole valley go quiet. "This land does not belong to Donna Ellery." I stood at the edge of my pasture with Deputy Collins and watched the surveyor pull a folded map from his clipboard, then point toward Donna's camper with the end of his measuring rod. "This land does not belong to Donna Ellery," he said again, slower this time, like he figured I had not heard him right. "It belongs to Calvin Rusk, the man who owns the old timber tract behind your place. Her camper is 27 feet over his boundary line." I wish I could tell you I handled that moment with dignity. But I just stared at the trailer, then at the plastic flamingos, then back at the surveyor and said, "You are telling me the woman who called me a squatter has been squatting this whole time?" Deputy Collins let out one breath through his nose, almost a laugh, and said, "Looks that way." 2 days later, Calvin Rusk drove down from Knoxville in a mud-covered Ford, wearing work boots and a brown jacket that looked older than Donna's entire HOA. He was not dramatic, not loud, not interested in winning an argument, which somehow made him more intimidating than anyone else I had met in months. He walked up to Donna's camper, knocked once, and handed her a notice to vacate. Donna came out waving both arms before he even finished introducing himself. "This is part of Greenridge Meadows," she said. "I am the HOA president." Calvin looked at the paper in his hand, then looked at her. "Mom, my grandfather bought this land in 1964, he said. "Your aid did not exist until last year, and it still does not exist on my property. You have 30 days to move that camper." Donna laughed at first, a loud, ugly laugh, but when he showed her the county plat, the tax map and the deed chain, her face went pale in a way I had never seen before. That was when I understood something I probably should have seen from the start. Donna did not really want my house because she needed space for her kids. She wanted it because she could not stand the idea that someone else had something solid, when her own life was balanced on a rented patch of dirt and a story she kept telling herself. She had built an identity around being in charge, and my refusal to bow to her had cracked the whole thing open. Donna fought the eviction in county court. Of course she did. She came in wearing a navy blazer and carrying a binder thick enough to stop a bullet, full of HOA rules, printed maps, handwritten notes, and what looked suspiciously like pages copied from the internet at 2 a.m. Judge Morrow listened to her talk about community authority for maybe 5 minutes before asking the only question that mattered. Can you show this court a deed, a lease, or any recorded covenant that gives you rights to this parcel? Donna flipped through that binder so fast, papers started sliding onto the floor. She said the community recognized her authority. The judge looked over his glasses and said, "Community recognition is not ownership." The courtroom got quiet after that. Then Bethany stood up with a second folder, one I had not seen before, and told the judge that the county recorder had found 3 documents Donna submitted under my name, including a fake property transfer that claimed I had gifted my farmhouse to the HOA. The signature was not mine, the notary stamp was not real, and the dates did not even match the county records. Donna tried to say she had been misled. Bethany said, "By whom?" Donna had no answer. She was ordered to leave Calvin's land, stay away from me, and face a separate investigation for filing false documents. A month later, the camper was gone. So were the flamingos, the solar lights, the barking dogs, all of it. I rebuilt the fence between my property and the empty lot, planted a row of cedar trees, and hung a small wooden sign by the gate that said, "Private property, no HOA beyond this point." Folks around Laurel Bend got a kick out of that sign. Some people stopped to take pictures. A few even told me they had been getting pushed around by Greenridge for months and they'd been too tired or too scared to fight it. That was the part that stayed with me. Not Donna getting hauled away, not the court papers, not even the look on her face when the truth finally caught up with her. It was realizing how many people had been waiting for somebody to say no. These days I sit on the same porch Walt used to sit on, drink my tea, listen to the crickets, and watch the evening settle over the pasture. Most nights it feels peaceful again. But every once in a while I see a car slow down near that empty lot, and I wonder what kind of person will move in next. Maybe they will be decent. Maybe there will be another Donna with a clipboard and a title nobody gave them. Either way, I know one thing now. Peace is not something people hand you. It is something you protect. So tell me this, if your neighbor tried to claim your home using fake HOA rules and a made-up promise, would you stay calm and build your case like I did? Or would you have lost your temper long before the sheriff ever showed up? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you believe no one should ever be bullied out of their own home, share this story with somebody who needs to hear it.